Hello, people of YouTube. This is Gray's Guitars. Thank you for watching. I am Steve Gray. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting new Harley Benton power supply. I have personally never seen anything like this out there, so I don't know if there is anything like this out there. There could be. This might be the first of its kind, but it's right around $60 US, or I think it's like 57 euros, somewhere around there, whatever. Maybe it might be 65, 70 US. But it allows you to power 5 pedals, which can be anywhere from full 4 volts to 16 volts. You have the ability to adjust the voltage, and then you also have a fifth 12 volt adapter. So I will put up an image of the screen now, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this little article to you. Harley Benton Power Plant iOS 3AC SAG Modular, the perfect fuzz power supply. A flexible power supply perfect for fuzz pedals. The latest Harley Benton power supply can simulate the sag you get from a dying battery. This should be perfect for that starved fuzz tone that so many players love. Let's be honest, power supplies aren't exactly interesting a lot of times. As long as they work and aren't noisy, we usually forget about them. However, this power supply, while it isn't particularly pretty, it does offer players a really handy feature, the ability to mimic a worn battery. This is the perfect for creating the sag, which some players really thrive on. You get 4 individually isolated outputs. Each output offers the ability to dial in the amount of sag you need to make your pedal sound even better. All 4 outputs are free from noise and hum, fulfilled a short circuit protected operation. Plus you get a 12 volt link, which can be used for conventionally powering a 12 volt pedal or an additional DC input power supply unit. Now some people do have more than 5 pedals on the 4 pedals on their board, 4 or 5 pedals on their board, so you can theoretically connect 2 of these and get up to 8, or you can connect 3, get up to 12, so on and so forth. It ultimately depends on how much money you want to buy. A lot of fuzz and distortion pedals start to sound really good just as their batteries are dying, and this sag is simulated with a power supply unit. Simple tweak the trim pots on the top of each output to dial in the amount of sag you want. Outputs 1 and 2 provide 9 volts of power, which can be lowered to 6.5 or 4 volts. Outputs 3 and 4 offer 18 volts. That are the trim pots can voltage sag down to 15, 12, 9, and 6 volts. The unit ships with 5 60 cm DC straight to right angle cables and 1.2 M AC power cord, and a kettle female to male connector. You get a lot for your money here, and I think the ability to dial in your sag will be popular with fuzz pedal addicts like myself. So right now it's showing a price of 69 euro. It actually might have jumped in price since me originally viewing the article. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it. Looks like $63 US, and plus shipping. Obviously, there's going to be some shipping costs in there as well. But I just wanted to bring up this power supply because there has never been a power supply I've really cared about. Because in all honesty, if you have some sort of noise gate or noise suppressor on your board and you just use a simple daisy chain, you don't necessarily need a power supply. If your amp has an input for the back where you can connect, you can have a pedal loop going through the back of your amp and don't have to have the whole thing going through the front. An isolated power supply isn't something you massively need either, because ultimately what a noise suppressor does or a noise gate does is it allows you to get rid of those unwanted feedback, those unwanted sounds, by adjusting the noise gate, noise suppressor, whatever you want to call it, if you will. Now, if you want to get rid of that noise gate or noise suppressor, you do not want to do the daisy chain route, yes, by all means, you can do a power supply such as this, and the additional thing with this that makes it interesting is you can adjust the voltage. So obviously you don't want to go higher than the voltage of the pedal that you're putting into it, so you may want to make sure that maybe tape down the voltage so you don't accidentally hit it, because if you're putting 16 volts through a 9 volt pedal, yeah, damage can be done to that pedal. You don't want that happening. So this is something that someone that doesn't know anything about voltage wants to mess with. If you're doing it to get that kind of extra fuzz or extra distorted sound by lowering the voltage, by all means, but you definitely need to be careful powering your pedals with this, because you can definitely cause damage to them in the process. You don't want higher voltage going through a pedal that cannot handle that kind of voltage. It is really cool that you can also connect this to multiple ones. So if you have a large pedal board, most people I know that have a pedal board have more than 4 pedals on it, including myself. You would want a couple of these. So you'd want to buy 2 of these, slap them under your board. You got enough for 8 pedals. That should do the trick. If you really need to get a third one, I mean, if you got the money, by all means. But, at a certain point, I think some people might just buy one of these and then have 1 or 2 pedals that are not connected to it. I could see them doing that as well, because they don't want to buy another one just for an additional pedal or 2 on their board. The only downside to this, as I said, is I think there should have been a couple of more ports. So I think you could have made it where you had the, original 4 ports where you can adjust the voltage, and then maybe given us 2 or 3 extra of ones that are just like your standard 9 volt, because pretty much everything is 9 volt. There are some 12 volt pedals, there are some 16 volt pedals, but you do not see a lot of them. Primarily, everything gets powered by a 9 volt battery. 90% of pedals, I would say, maybe even 95% of pedals. But I think it would have been a little bit nicer to include a couple more ports, even if it did cost the consumer, an extra $5 or $10. No one's going to complain about really paying $70 for a power supply if you can get like 6 to 8 pedals on there. There's already 5 ports, so what's the hurt of adding 2 or 3 more, where if you don't adjust anything, it would actually, cost them less money to a certain extent, because they wouldn't have to put, the adjusting voltage meter on every single one. They could just do it for the first 4, because in reality, the main ones you're going to be using that adjusted voltage for, or your distortion and your fuzz, you're not really going to be putting that on anything else. I mean, maybe you will. Maybe you want to put it on your reverb or something, or your wah pedal, to see if you can get different funky tones out of it. But primarily with the voltage thing, as I said, it's probably more going to be 2, maybe 3 pedals. And they already have the spots for it. So, I mean, it looks like there's extra room in the case too, where they could have had it, routing out of one of the sides. So I feel like they definitely could have fit it in there, or they could have just made the case a little bit bigger. But what you're getting for the money, I mean, this is kind of putting, Voodoo Labs, I believe it's called, Pedal Train. It's putting them to shame to a certain extent, because to my knowledge at this time, I don't think they have something that offers that. I think it's just, here's your giant brick power supply, strap it under your board. There's no adjusting the voltage, plug your pedals in, you're good to go. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't looked into power supplies in a very long time, because as I said, I use a daisy chain, and then I have a ISP decimator on my board, and that does the trick for me, gets rid of any unwanted feedback, any unwanted sound. Don't really have a problem with it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If I was incorrect about Pedal Train, feel free to correct me yet again in the comments down below. While you're down there, hit the notification bell and subscribe and like too. This is Gray's Guitars, and my name is Steve Gray. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one.